Hello, hi, and hello. It's your boys. We back. It's been a minute, and we've actually decided to do something a little new. We've changed the format of how we're going to do this. So the basic idea behind it is we rolled some dice actually 2 weeks ago now, I think, or something like that.
Yep.
Oh, by the way, it's Trevor and your boy Michael.
Hi.
And this is Roll Your Stats. So the new format, what we've decided to do is we rolled some dice previously, and we took those numbers and we put them away, and then we also rolled, I believe, the race.
The race and the class, I believe.
Right.
And after that, I think everything was just left up to creator's choice.
Oh, we did 2 personality traits. Those are the other 2 things that we let to fall randomly to the dice. We've taken those parameters and rolled up our own individual characters that then we just want to kind of spill out and chat about and see what we want to come up with. I think it'll be a really interesting exercise in how 2 people can take the exact same parameters for it's kind of like a puzzle in a way, and then just see how differently you can make a character even though you're working from the same seed, I guess.
Exactly. I think this is gonna be like a fun experiment to be able to see how 2 different people can come to the same race, the same class, the arguably same kind of party role, but how are they going to make it their own? Or how would they make it their own? How many different ways is there to make it your own?
We, I guess, should share the hidden stats, the rolled stats. First thing, we rolled the race of their character. And Michael, what do we have this week?
For this episode, we have a gnome fighter.
A gnome fighter. And I think you said it yourself whenever we actually rolled it. What brings a gnome to fight?
Yeah, I think a gnome fighter is actually a really interesting character concept, because what pulls you to being a gnome but also being a fighter? Like what is your reasoning? Why would you be one of arguably the most slightest, the tiniest, ineffectual melee combatant in the entire D&D lineup? Why would you choose to make a fighter out of that? And where do you go with that?
We also rolled those 2 different character traits. So we got unstable, and we also got calm, which I think is potentially a terrifying combination of traits.
I had an idea for a gnome fighter when we had first rolled up just the class and just the race, and that character alone was absolutely calm but unstable. And so when we came up with those 2, I felt like I was locked in. I got all the confirmation bias I never needed from the dice. I'm good to go.
Yeah, I kind of like the way that those 2 things they explain each other. How do you get the gnome fighter? Well, you need someone who is calm but unstable.
Exactly. Yes. You need someone who is maybe level-headed but also not level-handed.
That's a good way to put it. Then, would you like to share with us your gnome fighter?
My gnome fighter is named Geraltus. Geraltus is a deep gnome. He lives in the Underdark, where gnomes have become regimented. They are militant. They are, in fact, maybe even hyper militant, and they need to be able to defend themselves from the Duragar, from Drow, from Driders, from Etten and giant spiders, all sorts of monsters down here, but most importantly, magic. What in Geraltus's world causes the greatest amount of danger, what poses the greatest threat, is magic. Because in the Underdark, errant magic could cause cave-ins, they can cause collapse, that can destroy entire towns, entire cities. And what makes Geraltus who he is, what makes Geraltus a fighter, is that in his society, they make and create and train them specifically for wizard hunting. You see, gnomes are inherently magic resistant. They are tied to the Fae, and because of that, they can more easily shake off magical effects and spells, usually for mental stats, which, weirdly enough, on top of them being so slight, so tiny, so sneaking in and out, it makes them the perfect wizard assassins. And so here in the Underdark, gnomes are trained to be silent and stealthy. They are trained and built to be hunters of the people that can cause the greatest amount of harm, which is errant magic.
I see. That's it totally makes sense to me, where these people would maybe have to, maybe it was something that their ancestors had to go down to the Underdark to escape some other sort of greater threat, and whether it be that the threats underneath weren't as bad as what was above, or maybe they got trapped down there and they just had to make do. They just had to become incredibly tactical and smart about how they fight to be able to defend themselves. And then, like you said, with magic being having such potential for destruction, you'd have to have sort of like the gnome Navy SEALs to be able to combat something like that.
Yes, thank you. Exactly. These are like the mean beret. I went down with the tunnel fighter fighting style because, of course, these are tight corridors. Gnomes, being a size class small, they're practically built to be able to move around down here, where other medium-sized creatures even would struggle. But for a gnome, this is no problem at all. And that's really what puts them even one step closer to going in and taking out wizards.
So then we also decided to at least go to level 3 with this character so that we could get access to the archetypes and the different splitting options for playing a fighter. Which one of the fighting styles did you choose?
I chose Tunnel Fighter. I chose Tunnel Fighter. I like Tunnel Fighter.
Shit, that's the actual fighting style.
Yeah.
I see.
Heck
I see.
yeah.
Interesting.
With Tunnel Fighter, it essentially allows you to drop into a combat stance. It lets you kind of set yourself into the ground that you're at, and you spend your reaction to do so. But in doing so, you can use infinite number of attacks of opportunity on any creature that would be moving through the zone that you threaten.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
I see. That makes sense, to be able to, be quite mobile, which I can assume one of these guys would be. What about you? Also at 3, you get to choose your martial archetype. What'd you go for that?
For subclass, I decided that I would want to go with Rune Knight. I like Rune Knight because Rune Knight gives a lot of utility. You don't need, particularly to be super intelligent, you don't really need to have, magical capabilities. You don't have to be tied to using magic yourself, but it does give you some magical utility. It gives you some magical lateral movement where you can maybe defend an ally, or lay down like the very specific hurt on a very specific kind of target.
That makes sense. The way that you would kind of like use their affinity for magic to then apply that magic to a certain item and then have it benefit the melee martial fighting class that is tracking down the magic then.
Right, exactly. And then one of the big kickers that kind of comes with Rune Knight that I remember is that very early on, I think it's one of the first things that they can grow. If they're not already large, they get an inbuilt ability that essentially swells them in the same way that a Durgar would. And when they swell, they of course get more melee attack damage. And so if you can sneak these very sneaky little gnomes into position, get them kind of into a kingdom, maybe into a castle, try and find the targets that need to be taken out. Once they get there, they grow, and all of a sudden they're no longer weak. They're no longer skinny and frail. They're no longer small. These are giant creatures, large creatures. And being a large creature on top of also having Tunnel Fighter, It gives you a very wide area where you can take multiple attacks of opportunity against multiple targets and lock down an area.
I see what you mean. I didn't even know about the like size difference. We're being able to grow. And just having it built in is crazy. That's so cool. And especially because like that completely changes the game. You're not just the tiny little feeble gnome anymore. You're just a monster.
Right? Yeah, you're no longer that little fella. You're not a gremlin, some tiny little dagger in the dark. No, you have now successfully snuck a fighter all the way up to the enemy caster.
Oh my gosh! And then he can grow and like wrestle a man to the ground because he's as big as that man, if not bigger.
Right.
That's awesome.
That is Geraltus Ott, the gnomish Rune Knight fighter.
Very cool idea, my friend. I like that a lot.
So then allow me to bounce it back to you then, Trevor. Allow me to now mirror your question. Who did you make? What kind of a gnome fighter did you come up with?
My gnome fighter is a little lady known as Shannon the Cannon. Shannon is a gnomish fighter, and I've decided to go with the Echo Knight subclass. Shannon is a performer in the circus, and she is the gal who gets dressed up in a shimmering silver suit of armor and then gets launched out of a cannon across the big top for the amusement of the crowd. But with her affinity of being a Rune Knight, not a Rune Knight, I'm sorry, I'm switching back to Michael's character here, but with her being an Echo Knight, rather, she has the ability to manifest a copy of herself and flip between her position between those copies, which allows her to do this without ever actually having to face any danger at all.
Real physical threat. You are kidding me.
Yeah. So it helps her get around the dangers of actually being shot out of a cannon, but that doesn't mean that she isn't actually one tough bitch.
And so then let me ask you again. Does she carry the cannon?
Ooh, oh my gosh. That's something that I didn't even consider, but I mean, at some point, I think that it would be, I mean, it's in her name. It's synonymous.
I'm talking like in the character portrait. Is the cannon on the shoulder or under the arm?
Ooh. Maybe she definitely, I think it's under the arm. It's got to be under the arm. It's got to be something that like she's got to heft around with her unnatural gnomish strength.
So then, did she choose fighter purely for the aesthetic of the Echo?
I see. So in my headcanon here, Shannon works for this circus because her family owes money to the guy who runs the circus. And so he's caught them in some kind of deal where they have a debt that accrues faster than they can pay it off. So like they'll never stop being able to perform, or they'll always have to perform. And this guy will always be like grifting money off of them. I could see like maybe her mother does like fortune telling, and her dad is like a magician in his own right. But Shannon was born just, I guess, unnaturally dense and large for a gnome. So as soon as she grew up and got the ability to, she's sort of taken on this protector role, and she is the wall that Stana stands in between when she can.
This is a gnome that when she was born, they were honestly worried she was a changeling.
Yes.
Yes. This is an opportunity for a changeling to have actually been one of the babies. They had to double check for Shannon.
Yes, and I could imagine that's something horrifying I didn't consider, is that her mother could have had a baby that was as big as she is. It comes out and they look at her and wonder that's a human baby. That's no.
That's not right.
That's no gnome. But she sort of grows into her gnomishness. But I see her as being having some big arms and some big shoulders, and she doesn't put up with anything, but she knows that like it is like a legally binding sort of thing that her parents are stuck into. So she also performs and probably also does sort of like maybe thuggish sort of things. So I guess that would make her not lawful good as I put on my sheet, but probably more of like a lawful, maybe not even lawful, maybe more of a chaotic good, where it's just sort of like I have to do what I have to do to make the family survive. So yeah, it's like a deeply sort of personal thing. And then I would assume that her position in the party would be like that, you know, perhaps that the guy that owns the circus says like, hey, I need you to go out on this adventure because you owe me, and if you don't, your parents are going to be in worse shape. And so that's her like initial motivation for getting out with, you know, getting away from the circus.
Oh, so she almost has the opportunity to be an adventurer rather than being driven there through strife or, oh, my parents are dead, my village was burned. No, this is quite honestly an opportunity. It is a better life for her to be able to go adventure, risk it all trying to get some treasure out of these caves, rather than to continue being a back alley street thug and circus performer for, you know, arguably a giant bastard.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I could see it being, you know, she has to. Yeah, I love that perspective too of it being like not a pity thing. You know, she's like, you know, she probably has that guilt of leaving where, you know, my parents are going to probably be in worse shape, but if I go, like you said, maybe I can get some money and we can come back and fix the situation. Or maybe I can go out and I can just get strong enough so I can go back and like kill this dude and not have to even worry about it.
I absolutely love a reason why like that. Like there's a lot of different reasons why. Make sure your character has a reason why, and I think it's an awesome reason why is that it's a better opportunity to go and risk everything she has in the wilderness trying to scoop up some piece of magical item or a gold left behind by some other raiding party. That is an awesome motivation. That's just a better life for her.
Yeah. What about for Geraltus, right?
Geraltus.
Yeah. What brings him out from? What brings him to the surface?
Well, as it turns out, the gnomish military has a whole breadth of different. They have their own gnomish Air Force-esque. They have their own gnomish kinds of branches, you know, their own little gnome navies and maybe more intricate roles to play, some more intelligent roles to play inside of an army. But Geraltus, though calm on the outside, though relatively well put together when speaking, is highly unstable. Geraltus has very, very what am I thinking of? Hardcore impulsive behavior. It is hard for Geraltus to be able to deny, you know, the just the kind of inner whims of him going out and about, and that's dangerous. That is dangerous for a gnome. That is dangerous when everything around you is also trying to kill you. And so rather than allow him to be into a position where there are people working around him, where he has maybe like a large troop or a platoon or a battalion where they're all training together, no, he was really meant for the smaller groups. He was really meant for kind of the back alley wet work that needs to be done, but only because it needs to be done, because Geraltus is expendable. Absolutely expendable.
Interesting. Do you think that they would have found this out like before or after they trained him?
I think that's why they trained him in that particular category. I think that he signed up, he enlisted for sure and said, I want to be in the gnome army. And they went through all of the different categories. Is he maintenance? No. Can he be this kind of tech? No. Can he do this job? Still no.
He's in the gnome's army.
Exactly. Is he capable enough to be able to accomplish something? Absolutely. But do they trust him around others, or is it just better to put him into a small group, a small little cell that is very far away from everyone else to either do or don't do their mission?
and it's like half experiment, half punishment, half like data gathering sort of thing. Like let's send him to the surface and put him with some humans and some other people or whatever is up there, just so we can find out, and also sort of like get him out of our hair for a little bit.
Exactly. Yes. They basically sent Geraltus out with other very like-minded, unstable, and wild individuals because they're all meant to be expendable. They're all just meant to get whatever their mission was done. Maybe if Geraltus were to be in a D&D party, it's because he did, but he also kind of realized in, completing a suicide mission that it was supposed to be a suicide mission. And if he comes back, they'll just send him on another one.
Just as dangerous and just as deadly. And he says, like, if I'm going to be risking my life, I'm at least going to do it for myself.
I might as well put a coin or two in my pocket.
That's cool. I like that a lot. I like that perspective of my people. If they didn't want me, then I'll go find use elsewhere, and I'll make that for myself. I can do this really good, and so I'm gonna go and do it really good. And it kind of does seem like the impulsive nature of his coming out, of him saying like, maybe I like the thought of him finishing it and then making that decision for himself. But maybe it was that he like got up there and went full ADD, saw a squirrel, and just he was so taken by what was the surface and has just gotten caught up.
I could absolutely see just the entire wonder of a whole new world, looking at the sun, flowers, greenery for the first time, as being like, yeah, this is neat, and then spending, gnomes have wildly long lives, spending a century up there, and then looking at his watch and being like, oh dang, wait a minute. Shoot, I should have been back down there again, huh?
They're gonna be so mad.
I also kind of like the idea that they did send him out on like a suicide run with like a definite rendezvous point, kind of escape plan. But maybe like the locator that they sent him, the little beacon that they sent him out with, was just like a box with like a red button and a spring inside that would click, but didn't actually do anything. They really just let him go, and they're like, yeah, no, there's no way he'll make it, but he won't go on it if there's no way that he could come back, so send him with like a placebo locator.
If he comes back, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, if he comes back, they'll do it again.
That's one thing I'd forgotten to say, was that the unstable and calm, parts of the character would definitely be that Shannon, she's unstable because she's been in this like rigid sort of, maybe not rigid lifestyle, but she's had to do as she was told. She's had to do things that she didn't really want to do. So now she's kind of been pushed to the edge. She's sort of like the kid who grew up in the religious household and didn't get to do anything fun, but now has the opportunity to like really go wild. But then she's also pretty calm because she's used to being in these high stakes sort of situations, whether that be her launching herself out of a cannon or playing a bully for this dude who owns her. I think we kind of found a good stopping point there. So we wanted to do we were talking about the format. Anyway, so one of the things that we wanted to do was kind of chat about the characters first, like who this person is, and then we're gonna take a little break, and we'll be right back talking about what this like mechanically means to play Shannon and Geraltus. So we'll be right back. Oh, we're done for. Gods have mercy, what have we done? They'll hang us for this, I'm sure of it.
Oh, relax, little boy. We've got ourselves out of worse situations than this. Right, Shannon?
Castor's right. Just follow our lead.
Why don't we try, what's that over there? We reach the platform, you cause a commotion, and I'll unlock our chains. What do you say?
You always want to do the, what's over there? And you think I need your help with these petty things? Cedric, think you can use your magic to cover our escape? A fog spell should do the trick.
You really think it'll work?
Trust us, friend. We face dragons and live to tell the tale. A few guards won't be our end.
Dragons? Alright then. Let's do this.
Let's do this. Ah!
Yours, Nebula. Hey, what's that over there?
And welcome back. This is Roll Your Stats. This is part 2 of our little bit about our gnomish fighters, Shannon the Cannon and Geraltus. Now we're going to talk about the mechanics of the characters and like sort of how these characters would actually play. There's a couple of things just off the bat I want to talk about, like just being a gnome, since that affects the both of us, and I assume that we can kind of talk about the same thing with the class as well. So the first thing as a gnome, you instantly get your intelligence increased by 2, and you also get dark vision and gnome cunning, which gives you advantage on all intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saves against magic. So that I maybe would see, like, is that the inception of your idea for Geraltus?
Oh, absolutely. When we got a chance to make a gnome, the very first thing that stood out the most was their gnome cunning. Advantage on basically every mental stat. Whenever you're getting hit by a spell, that's huge. That I feel like that is giant. That is a game changer. And when you get paired up with a fighter, I feel like that's just bread and butter. They work hand in hand. Now all of a sudden your big fight boy has defense against the spells that are the most likely to turn them against you or cut them down or shut them out.
That's exactly the point that I really focused on there with this character, because I love playing fighter. Fighter is my favorite class. And I love playing like martial classes that like get up there and do the damage. But with playing the martial class, your biggest enemy is getting mind controlled, getting CC'd, just getting shut down in some way. Like, you're not afraid to get into the heat and take some damage. You're maybe not even afraid to go down, I've got death saving throws, I'll be okay. But getting mind controlled is always the worst, because then, there's just nothing worse than losing control of your character. And it's the easiest way, because you usually have to sacrifice, because you're like, oh, well, I need to have decent dex. I gotta have high strength. I gotta have high constitution. Well, my intelligence and my wisdom are gonna falter, and those are the ones that get you. So having built-in advantage on those things, that's nuts. You
can't go wrong. You can't go wrong.
Yeah, the only way I guess I feel like then you're sacrificing then as the fighter is, well, I mean, even if you roll your stats good, say you roll 16s all across the board, and so then you just have like monster strength too.
It only helps. It absolutely only helps.
Yeah, that I feel like is a way to immediately just make a fighter that can look into a DM's eyes and go, try me.
I dare you. This is a fighter that was made by someone who's been commanded before.
Yes, it says no longer, not again, never again.
So then you mentioned stats. You mentioned getting your fighter stats all the way across the board. Well, how did you divvy your stats up?
That's a great question. Let me look at my character sheet here. I took 13 strength, 13 dexterity, 16 constitution, because I feel like if she's getting shot out of a cannon and she's gonna be this tough chick, she's gotta have tough skin. That's why I went with that as my highest one. Intelligence was because we did have 10s, so it would have been a 10, except we got the built-in 2. 10 wisdom, and then 14 charisma, because at the end of the day, Shannon is a performer, so she's got to have that charisma, which also leads into why I took the background entertainer, so I could get these skill proficiencies in acrobatics and performance. because those are just sort of like the baseline sort of things that I felt like she would be good at, but then that also gives her a pretty decent chance to get a bonus to her intimidation score and kind of flex on some fools as well. What about you? What were your skill or your role allocations, and then how did that affect your skills, and then what about your background?
I leaned really, really heavy into the being a gnome. Geraltus' strength 10. He doesn't need strength. He's fine. He can be a dex fighter. In fact, his dex is 16. His constitution is only 10. I'm banking on the d10 of a fighter's natural hit die, hopefully carrying him through. But then I really just leaned into the intelligence stats as a fighter. With the gnomish +2, his intelligence would be a 16. The wisdom sits at a 13, and then the charisma is also at a 13. And then looking at background, I am a huge Magic the Gathering fan. I love collecting the cards. I like the lore. I like everything but the company that makes them. I chose the Golgari agent. I thought that it kind of fit for a character that in my head definitely lives in the Underdark. And I think it fits really well with kind of the maybe like rogue, assassin, sleeper cell kind of vibe that Geraltus gives. It gives you skill proficiencies, you get nature, you get survival. But it also comes with a poisoner's kit, which I think might maybe help tip the scales a little bit for a fella that doesn't hit very hard.
Yeah, I can see that just being sort of like part of the kit for just a little wild, aggressive man.
Right? Like, yeah. just add anything to add a little bit of punch to a character that doesn't have any.
Are you familiar with, is it Golgari? What is Golgari within the realm of like Magic the Gathering?
Oh my goodness. The Golgari are disgusting. I'll just be honest with you. The Golgari are, if I remember right, a green and black combination color. They coincide perfectly with kind of just the cycle of life. It is all about the smaller organisms. You are just one of a teeming mass of a whole. You are just one cog in a machine. You are just one little piece in a grand design. You are one soldier in an army. But they care about the never-ending cycle. That's kind of their jam.
Nice.
Death and life and rebirth.
Nice. That's dope. I like that a lot. It's a area of Magic I would probably never approach because I don't like playing black. But cool.
Right. It's definitely for somebody.
So then we also have Fighter. Fighter gets a couple of things just right off the bat, or at least you get one thing right off the bat, which is your Second Wind. Second Wind gives you the ability just to get some health back in the middle of a fight. Second Wind rules. That I love being able to say, I can take care of me.
Oh, for sure.
The cleric, you focus on getting that squishy guy back up. Then in level 2, you get Action Surge, which is like sort of the bread and butter of the fighter. Action Surge just lets you take a whole other action. So as soon as you hit level 2, you can attack twice, and that rules. The only thing is you can just do it.
I believe it is limited to level 2 once per short rest until you're like, I don't know, like level 16, 17.
Yeah, something like that, to where you only get one chance per day, or I guess per rest, to really like go off. But you have that moment in there. You have that in your back pocket, and having that just feels good. Man,
is it an iconic moment. It is always an iconic moment.
So then we split there. Then we kind of go into two different directions, with you going with the Rune Knight and me going with the Echo Knight. Do you want to tell us about the Rune Knight? What's all that about?
The Rune Knights kind of their vibe is that they incorporate magic into the fighting that they do as a fighter, but it's not quite to the degree of an Eldritch Knight. Instead, Rune Knights, they inscribe runes onto armor, items, affects, things that their party would keep with them. These runes are basically little, pocket abilities or effects or spells that they can just kind of sit on, and when you need them, you can activate a rune, you can turn it on, you can use it for when you need it. But you don't need to constantly rely on knowing spells or keeping a spell list or paying attention really to anything like that. It is really good for giving you just some very lateral utility magic just for when you need it.
So this isn't the kind of guy who's going to be swinging a sword and like throwing a fireball. This is a guy who's going to be like using this to help him reposition or to like aid an ally, something like that.
Oh, for sure. One of the runes that kind of hit me, the ones that kind of like struck me right off the bat, is you get it very early on. It's the Cloud Rune. The Cloud Rune, it gives you advantage on, I believe it is sleight of hand and deception checks, which is a big deal anyway. But on top of that, it comes with an ability. If a creature you see within 30 feet of you is attacked and hit by an attack roll, you can use your reaction to redirect that attack onto someone else.
Oh, I like that a lot. So then you can like spit an attack back at an enemy or at another enemy.
Right, and much like the fighter's already kind of like short rest centric action surge, it comes back on a short rest itself, and so at least one time per fight usually you can take what would have been directed maybe at one of your allies, one of your squad, you know, your company, your mean berets, and you can point it back at someone else. And that's the kind of thing that keeps you alive in those 1 or 2 rounds that you need to be able to fight like a large scale, you know, heavy hitting wizard.
I see what you mean. That makes sense. And that can also kind of allows you to take that 10 in your constitution, because you've kind of got multiple barriers before you just actually start taking damage.
Yeah, Geraltus's 10 constitution was a weighty choice, but I'm kind of hoping that, you know, maybe like being wily, being a little bit unstable and kind of unpredictable is going to help him more than it hurts him.
I see. And I know another interesting part about that is that you can inscribe the runes on your party's stuff. Is that correct? Like the runes don't directly apply to you. Can you inscribe them on other people?
I'm pretty sure that it just breaks down that to be eligible, an object must be a weapon, suit of armor, like a shield, piece of jewelry, something that you can wear or you can hold in your hand. But outside of that, I don't really think that there is a rule on who holds it.
That's interesting. I didn't consider that, because I've played a Rune Knight in the past, but I had a deal with my DM that I would play him kind of more like a barbarian, where I could not wear armor, but in payment for that, the runes weren't something that I had to inscribe. They were just tattoos on the player character that then I would like invoke whenever I wanted to use that. But I didn't realize that also in doing so, I robbed myself of the ability to like give that blessing out to other people as well. Because, you know, like you said, that just giving the rune on something gives you advantage on charisma and wisdom, was it?
It's sleight of hand and deception, but I mean, those are some very, very powerful skills.
I see, and that could be someone like where one of the other party members is I don't know how you would have the ability or the foresight to put the rune on somebody, but, you know, say someone has to go into a place and has to steal something, and they're not the one who traditionally would do it. So then you give them that rune to say, okay, well now you're a little bit better equipped to try to do this.
It comes across as a little bit cheesy, and I don't know how much I would let it like fly at my table, but a helmet is a helmet is a helmet, and so arguably a Rune Knight could inscribe a helmet with a very, very persuasive or maybe a very deceptive kind of rune, and then that helmet could fit him, it could fit the dwarf, it could fit the human, it could fit the elf, and then we all just pass around the magic lying helmet.
The magic lying helmet,
yeah.
yes, that's
everyone
fantastic.
Put your hand on the magic lying bucket and tell me your best story.
Yes, that's so good. That's so good. And then it would also, because the way that it worked out for my character is that because as you progress through the levels, you get more runes that you can activate and invoke. Mm-hmm. So then my character ended up like having advantage in all saving throws, because you get like 3 runes that you can activate at once, you know?
That is big. Oh my goodness, that is big.
Which goes into that line of, this also is a triple layer of defense of me getting mind control, losing control of my character. I will not let it happen.
It's all about just keeping the fighter on your own team. It's all everything is about keeping the fighter on your own team.
That's interesting because then mine, I chose Echo Knight purely based on like the mental image of Shannon shooting herself out of the cannon and then flopping herself, flipping the places to where it never actually happened, or she was never in any danger. So it's funny, like I think it shows like how we both go about creating characters where you can read through this and go like, oh, there's that one unique mechanical thing about these characters. I can turn that into like, I can explain that. I can explain why that is through the way that he is as a background. Whenever I just have like, I have a snapshot mental image, and then it's like, well, how can I fit the puzzle pieces to answer that?
What rules coincide with the picture I have in my head?
It's kind of almost like that we work through the solution like through opposite means. So then Echo Knight, on the other hand, has the ability to manifest a echo, like a spectral version of yourself, that has its own, AC. It does only have 1 hit point, but it's immune to all conditions, and then it uses your saving throws. But as a bonus action, you can teleport, switching places with the echo, and it does say regardless of the distance between the two of you. So that's, you can make some astronomical wild switcheroonies with something like that. You can also, if you attack, you can make the attack originate between either you or the echo, and then I believe you can use the echo to make opportunity attacks as well. Then at level 3, you get Unleash Incarnation, which allows you to like, you use the attack action, and then you can make an additional attack through your echo
with
as well.
your echo. That's awesome.
So then that combined with the like action surge, for example, at level 3 you get the chance to just like really just explode for a turn and hope that you can blow somebody up, because this says that you can use it equal to the number of your constitution modifier. So Shannon would get a couple of uses of this that, at least for 1 turn she could just like blow someone up and hope that's enough.
Really, like looking over the Echo Knight, it hits me that like you have also reached for as many get out of jail free cards from spells as I have. And oddly enough, I love the way that you explained it, where you have an image in your head of her doing the things that you like, and you work for the rules to get to that. And I see some rules that I like, but like I need a reason to be able to do them. But both of our goals are still exactly the same. So where it crosses is that we kind of get the same outcome, where it's like, I want to keep my character under my control. I want to be me, and I don't want to fall to wizard shenanigans.
Yes, that is so interesting. Where like you said, there are 2 different approaches, 2 different characters, but there is still a crux in between, and that crux in between is, I want to be me. I don't want to have the DM take my character from me. That's a really interesting thing, where like, and even being able to like distinctly pinpoint it like that is a very interesting sort of like social experiment, I guess. And I feel like all of these sort of things, if we continue to do it in this sort of manner, will have that sort of like crux thing that it always comes back to.
I like that, actually. I think that as we do more of these, I think that we should like maybe document like the number of times that we come to the same conclusion from different backgrounds.
I do this because I want to keep my character. Well, I do this because I also want to keep my character. Yeah, yeah. And then also to see, it'll be interesting to see if we do. Once again, we use the same roles and the same parameters. If there are moments where we have characters that don't match up at all, and they're just like, they are almost like snapshots of 2 different universes.
That's actually that is really interesting. I'm curious to find out like what happens when we both get the same race, the same class, and then end up making wholly different characters. Mm-hmm. In fact, maybe the fact that you and I kind of have the same idealization for like the fighter's end goal, maybe that's the anomaly.
Oh, I see. That'll be exciting to kind of look forward and see how that works out. and see if it is the standout. I think that's about a good exclamation point on the end of that conversation. I think that's really kind of cool that it did have a little exclamation point of us coming to that general conclusion, and really cool exercise to challenge ourselves into making some really unique characters that stand apart from each other. I think that was really fun. So thank you for joining us. It's been a great conversation. You guys, keep on and keeps. And we love you, and we'll see you soon on Roll Your Stats.
Goodbye.